I acted in one of the biggest Chinese movies ever, The Battle of Changdun Lake. Now, the guy who played the American general in that movie is now posting the most unhinged Chinese TikToks. So I sat down with my buddy Todd, who also worked on the movie, and we just talked about this insane story. MacArthur obviously playing the enemy general is now becoming like this
famous
like
Chinese,
but also like a role model, doing like cute TikToks.
Yeah, he complained too much about the prosthetics, and the director wasn't sure that he would actually be willing to shoot on the day. Thought he would just be a little difficult, and so he found another tall white guy extra in the background. To and pulled him aside. Said he looks kind of like MacArthur. Sent him to my hotel room the night before and was like, take some video of this guy and send it to me. So I had just a couple hours to get this guy who had never really acted on camera before except in these little extra parts in the background to play a MacArthur, and it was hilarious. Just getting him to act was hard, you know. He's like doing all these weird things with his face and his mouth, like he just wasn't natural at all, but it was good enough for to edit around. And if you put some glasses on and stick a pipe in his mouth and bring that hat down low enough,
a lot of wide shots. I
ended up
we'll
in
fix
the
it
movie.
in post.
Yeah, but boy did that guy get a big head after that was done.
Oh my god.
He ended up pushing his way onto the stage next to the director at the premiere. He wasn't even supposed to be at the premiere, but he kind of bullied his way into some tickets. And then once all the big stars were called up on stage to talk about the movie, he decided he was a big star too and ran up fearlessly between these two, one of the most famous Chinese directors ever, one of the most famous actors in China, grabbed the mic and started talking about his experiences completely unprompted.
And this dude, I think he has millions of followers now on Chinese social media. Did you know this?
No.
His whole thing is every single day I'll throw a video up, but he's wearing his thing and he's doing these like ridiculous TikTok dances.
Met on that movie set.
Oh, did we? Well, if you want to drop that in, how do we tell the people about that?
It was only the most expensive film ever produced in China, you know, with like 3 of the most famous Chinese directors in the whole world. So, you know,
not a big deal.
It's a little project we played around on.
The highest grossing movie in China at the time, not a big deal.
Nothing.
How do you morally justify Todd Josephine Bermuda?
That's right. That's my stage name.
Your full name.
Yeah.
How do you justify acting in some of these propaganda historical movies? Because quick context, the movie which we both were in it was about the Korean War, obviously told from the Chinese perspectives of the Yanks, your lot.
That's right.
And the Chinese fighting together against each other in Korea. And we made one of these mega movies together.
We did.
How do you feel about that?
You know, back then I felt differently about it than I do now. I mean, right now the world's kind of a different place than it was back then when we were making these movies. Obviously, a lot of us know when we're doing these movies that they're sort of thinly disguised propaganda. These movies are definitely funded by the Chinese government. They're reviewing the scripts and things like that. I've actually been in the script room helping rewrite some of the lines to make them more realistic and things. So, you know, some of the lines that I've written end up in these movies, and some other lines ended up on the cutting room floor because they didn't make it past the censors for whatever reason. So yeah, I've seen these movies evolve from things that look to be fairly balanced, you know, portrayals of the war with like lots of thoughtful story, into something that just leans a little bit more heavily like this is the China side of it. You know, this is we want to focus a little bit more on what was going on with the Chinese soldiers, and you know, maybe make the Americans look like they had a overly huge Thanksgiving dinner while the Chinese soldiers were breaking their teeth on potatoes in the cold, you know. Again, historically accurate, but you know, I also think that a lot of movies we make in the States too can be a bit propaganda-y. So there's a balance to be made.
I found that very interesting because I think the Western person looking at that movie would think like, oh, the soldiers had better benefits than the American army, which is quite interesting. But I guess from a Chinese perspective, I guess people really glorify hard work and stuff. So they're like, yeah, we had it really rough, and because we're fierce and we're
well. In our case, it was kind of an underdog story, right? I mean, and it's based in reality, and so I think that's another reason why I looked at it and I thought, yeah, this is a story that deserves to be told. I mean, really, there was a lot of American hubris pushing up through the what is it, the 32nd parallel or whatever the parallel was in South Korea, and it was really their hubris that caused them to be pushed back, and they were pushed back by a ragtag group of Chinese farmers who were sent out with minimal supplies. Half of them, if not most of them, ended up freezing to death by the end of it, but they were able to use very low-tech techniques to hide themselves very well and surprise the American army and push them back. And I mean, that's, you know, we love underdog stories. We love these stories of kind of like going up against the odds. That's also stories that we tell in our movies and things as well. And so I thought it was an interesting story to tell, and it was definitely pretty historically accurate. You know, being propaganda-y, you know, I mean, now, you know, at the time we saw, yeah, this is also intended to sort of, you know, pump up some nationalism, make us proud of our army, make us proud of our wartime accomplishments in the past. Now, I don't participate in those anymore. I actively have refused jobs for these kinds of movies and these projects. I used to do a lot of voiceover for obvious, like, propaganda things, and now, if they involve the military or things like that, I'll usually say no.
Yeah.
Because
you'd rather be neutral.
I'd rather be neutral, and you know, like I said, the world's a little more dangerous place now, and it seems like people are taking more action now than they have, and war is becoming really real and really coming to home. And so to sort of promote this mindset in the general populace, like, yeah, this is a really good thing, I think on both sides of the ocean, is not what I feel we should be doing.
Yeah.
So I, you know, in the same sense, I wouldn't be operating in like an American, you know, big kind of war movie that's drumming up support for this idea of shooting each other.
Because there's the balance of like remembering the past, but then beyond that, it's like, you know, let's calm down a little bit and be a bit more positive. And
let's understand that this came at a cost.
Yes.
You know. And that's the thing that kind of gets lost a lot of times with these films, again, both in the East and the West. So yeah, that's why I don't really participate in those anymore. Haven't for the last few years since things started to get politically dicey. Yeah.
Call it a day.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, thanks so much, Todd.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for watching, and thank you to my 100 subscribers, that we just reached. If you want to hear more stories about being a foreign actor out here in China and my life here, take a look. These are all posters of movies I've been in. I've got lots of random stories. If you like this one, there's more. And if you have any questions, anything you're curious about, I'll make a video addressing them. See you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.